LiSTNR production.
Hi, Helen Smith here. Welcome to The Briefing. It's official. Brat's summer is coming to Australia in 2025. Today, the lineup for Laneway dropped, and it included some massive names. Charli XCX, whose meteoric rise to fame has taken over the Northern Hemisphere's summer, will appear alongside Clairo, Remy Wolf and Skeggs as the festival tours across Brisbane, Melbourne, Sydney, Adelaide, Perth and Auckland. The excitement is palpable, but the story of the last few years of music festivals in this country has not been a good one. There's been countless examples of big-ticket headlining artists dropping out the last minute. Just this weekend, we saw international singer Tyler drop out of her appearance at LiSTNR in Sydney with only 2 days' notice. The cost of living is also hitting organisers and punters alike. Production costs are higher than they've ever been, and the cost of a ticket to a major music festival can be as much as a plane ticket. There has been a clear industry-wide slump in ticket sales. In 2022, we saw Falls Festival closing its doors until further notice, and more recently, Splendour in the Grass and Groove in the Moo were cancelled. Bluefest announced its next festival will be its last, and many, many more smaller shows have been impacted. So, with today's big announcement, there's another question. Can we put our trust into music festivals anymore? How many times can we get our hopes up to see our favourite artists to then have them cancel? And how do we know that this latest massive headliner is a sure thing? Courtney Fry is Triple J's music news producer. Courtney, welcome to The Briefing. Today is a big day for the music industry as Laneway's lineup has dropped. What does Charli XCX headlining say about the thinking from festival organisers?
I think it's a really kind of like knowing the audience, I guess keeping an eye, like Charli's been around for quite a while and seeing the way that she's kind of been permeating through the zeitgeist, especially in the last couple of years, especially with this new album and now with the deluxe album coming out. It's really keeping that finger on the pulse, I think, from the Laneway team and making sure that there's that longevity as well. You know, it's not just kind of an artist that's a real flash in the pan kind of thing. It's someone that has that really lasting energy and has a really big excitement around them as well. You know, we're seeing her over in the States with the Sweat Tour with Troye Sivan, so there's that immediate Australian link and wanting that to come over here as much as we would love it. We'll take it for Laneway, absolutely.
And what impact do these big ticket, like international artists like Charli have on ticket sales? Why are they so important?
It's a really good way, and I think Laneway does this really well, is getting audiences in the door, you know, with those big ticket items, those big ticket acts, and then being able to use that kind of platform to bring some new artists through as well and get people being like, you know, the Laneway can be like, okay, if you like Charli XCX, check out a few of these other acts that we're going to have during the day. I think next year's lineup is really well curated in that way. They always do a really good effort with bringing over some artists that have never been to Australia before. So artists like Olivia Dean and Julie, Joey Valance and Brat as well. So it's a really good way and a really smart play to kind of curate it in a way of knowing what the audience wants or what they're really, really into and then kind of shoehorning in these other artists. It's like, okay, well, you know, if you like this, you'll probably also be a fan of these artists as well. So let's get them in front of you as well.
Over the past couple of years, we've seen the music industry really struggle. A lot of festivals have been cancelled or major headliners have dropped out. Can we trust music festivals anymore?
Yeah, it has been quite tough and there's quite a few things at play for festivals. The important thing is to maintain that trust and festival teams are working around the year. Basically, as soon as the festival ends, they're already looking ahead to the next year to really pull together and curate the right lineup. And, you know, the best ones clearly take their fans into deep consideration. It's quite tricky with artists leaving festivals, I think, because ultimately the festivals team job is to put on the best day for their punters. So, you know, there's always going to be backup plans and contingency plans and things for if the worst case scenario does happen. We have just seen that with Listen Out. They were pretty badly hit with those late outs, but I think that was managed quite well with bringing in, you know, an international artist in Earth Gang, Sampa the Great, who is so loved here and always puts on a really good show. And then like an Australian artist in Young Marta as well, YG Marta. Yeah, I think kind of the best practice would be if your relationship with festivals and your trust with festivals is a little bit rocky, which is understandable coming out of a major pandemic, in an economic situation like we're in an environmental situation like we're in. It's perfect storm, and like you don't really know what's going to happen on the day. Always getting ticket insurance is like my go-to. Like, you never know what's going to happen. So just having that kind of peace of mind is really good. And then also, there's reselling options as well. If there's, the one artist that you really wanted to see is no longer able to make it, there's always probably going to be someone else that'll snap that up. And then, there are other things like consumer affairs and just knowing your rights as a purchaser, which is, can feel a bit boring and bland, but, it is important to know about.
Speaking of ticket insurance and ticketing platforms, Light is a US ticketing company that's recently shut down, and it's the ticketing platform for this year's Lost Paradise Festival coming up over New Year's. Why are Aussie music festivals using offshore companies like Light?
Perhaps it was, they just gave them the best offer and in the market of what they were looking at, that was just perfectly suited to their needs. It is only, from what I can tell, only affecting Rabbit's Eat Lettuce and Lost Paradise at the moment. It's obviously a very complex situation because it does involve offshore and international businesses and companies and relationships. So it's obviously likely quite fraught legally as well. So there's not a lot that we know at the moment. I do know that Rabbit's Eat Lettuce quite quickly, when they kind of saw what was happening, shifted their ticketing over to Humanitix, which is an Australian-based company. But they have estimated that they lost around $30,000 in that process, whereas Lost Paradise are still working through things, and I think we're expecting an update from them this week. Triple J is a partner with them, so, look to our socials and website, and we'll be able to let you know what's going on there as soon as we know.
When it comes to ticketing, if Laneway doesn't hit its mark or sell enough tickets within the first couple of weeks, could we see that be cancelled?
I wouldn't think so. I don't know what their kind of margins are. I would like to think that the way that they've curated this festival, and you're seeing that immediate response online, on our socials, on Laneway's socials, in their broadcast channels and stuff, it's all quite really, really positive. It's obviously a lineup that people are really resonating with, and not just with, just the Charli XCX, the Clairo, the Bieber Doobie, those three big headliners. You're seeing a lot of depth in there as well. There's people that are really excited for Hamdi and Tu Hollis, and even some of the local acts like Rona. She's doing really, really well at the moment, and Storm and Nita Geraci. So I think they'll be pretty fine. And Laneway has a really solid base of people going year after year. There's people that have been going for 10 years now. I've been going since about 2016 and will go every year. So I think there's that immediate trust in there as well of, what you're getting into and what you're buying into. And there's that understanding and, that trust that they're always going to put on a good day no matter what.
Some experts have said that these kind of multi-genre music festivals are slowly dying off because of the way we consume music online and through a lot of streaming platforms now. Punters are choosing rather to splurge on a single artist. Do you agree with that?
I think we're kind of seeing that in the way that festivals are kind of moving, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just shifting. Our wants and needs are shifting. I think definitely coming out of the pandemic, people are a lot more cautious with their money and what they want to spend it on, and we're seeing those big artists coming through, and people will splurge on that, but they'll recognize that that's the one big thing that they'll go to. But I think, it is that shift away from bigger festivals where it's kind of satisfying a broader range of people, and more going into those boutique, very genre-specific festivals where you are seeing a lot of those EDM festivals and electronic music festivals doing really, really well, like Pitch. I think that that's where curation can really shine as well, because that if a punter likes Korn, they're probably also going to like the Amity Affliction. There's that a bit more of that understanding and reassurance that you're going to be able to move tickets in that way.
So we touched on this a little bit before with those initial ticket sales being really important. Recently, we've seen some festivals cancel within a week or two of going on sale. Why is that? Why do they cancel so soon after going on sale?
I wish I could tell you. I don't know if there's conversations going on behind the scenes. It is, quite disappointing to see that, especially when it's something that you might be really excited for, or, and I can understand how that then leads into not being trustworthy of festivals. We are seeing in comments, I can't wait for this to get cancelled. Like the cynics, it kind of pulls the cynic out in you. I wish I knew why that would happen, but I'm sure there's so much going on behind the scenes that we just don't know about. And unfortunately, some festivals do just have to make that really hard decision very quickly. So whether it's to protect, bottom lines, or making sure that it's, not doing so much financial damage that they can't come back in future years. Yeah, I wish I knew.
We've also seen big impacts from the cost of living, and many music festival organisers have said that the government needs to step up with support and funding. Do you think this would help? And what would the government actually do?
Yeah, I think having that government support, it shows that there's a consideration into the arts and, holding space for younger people, especially when that's going to be your constituency, when they come of voting age or if they aren't already. I need to look into this a little bit more, but I know that there's discussion around insurance and licensing and police and things like that, because that's where a lot of those really exorbitant fees are coming in for festivals. So, yeah, whether it's a matter of, looking into that and bringing things into place from a local perspective, a state perspective, I think that'll really help to kind of revitalise as well, just kind of taking a few of those pressures off, because we'll then see that kind of trickling down. And where, I guess, if you're just looking at it economically, where a festival's not spending, exorbitant amounts of money on licensing or insurance, then they're able to have more budget for artists that they want to bring over and putting on the best kind of experience for those punters that they can.
How important are music festivals for Australian artists, giving them that platform to then potentially skyrocket and perform overseas?
It's so important. Although we are so well connected with the internet and stuff, and it has changed a lot over the years, and still being able to get those artists platformed onto our stages and supported by the community as well is super, super vital. Sounds Australia do a lot of work with different festivals over in kind of our version of Big Sound, but over in the UK and the US, platforming some up-and-coming artists over there. So that's a really good way, I guess, for international markets to learn a bit more and find some artists that they can support or want to take on tour. I think it's super vital. And at the end of the day, festival culture over here is so ingrained in our identity. I grew up regionally, so being able to have something to look forward to, especially, things like Groove in the Moo and those festivals that do a regional run, it just connects you in and it makes you feel part of the community, and it's so special, and it's something that, we need to continually support by going along to festivals, backing them, even just sharing things on socials and making sure that there's a lot of conversation being, had about it. And I think that's the only way that we can really make sure that it stays as a really vital part of our music community.
Courtney, thanks so much for joining us on The Briefing.
Thank you so much.
That was Courtney Fry, Triple J Music News producer, and the lineup for Laneway is very exciting. Charli XCX is a massive name, so we'd love it to hear your feedback, and if you guys are excited, if you're going to be buying tickets, and if you trust the music industry anymore. That's it for this episode of The Briefing. We'd love it if you could share this app with someone else you think might enjoy it as well. If you want to keep up with our other content, you can check us out on Instagram at The Briefing Podcast, and on TikTok and YouTube, just search for LiSTNR Newsroom. We'll be back in your feed tomorrow at 6 a.m. I'm Helen Smith. See you next time.